Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Charlie Chaplin was one of the most influential figures in the history of cinema. Born Charles Spencer Chaplin on April 16, 1889, in London, England. He rose from a difficult childhood to become a global icon of the silent film era. He is best remembered for his character, the Tramp, a kind-hearted, clumsy man with a bowler hat, toothbrush mustache, cane, and a waddling walk. Early life. Chaplin was born into a poor family of music hall performers. His father was largely absent and his mother, Hannah, struggled with mental illness. Charlie spent time in workhouses and orphanages. Despite these hardships, he began performing on stage at a young age, joining Fred Karno's comedy troupe as a teenager, which took him to America in 1910. Film career. Chaplin made his film debut in 1914 in Making a Living, but it was in his second film, Kid Auto Races at Venice, that he first appeared as the Tramp. He quickly became one of the most recognizable and beloved screen characters worldwide. In 1919, Chaplin co-founded United Artists, giving him full creative control over his work. His films combined slapstick comedy with deep emotional and social commentary. Major works include The Kid, 1921, a touching comedy drama with Jackie Coogan; The Gold Rush, 1925, considered one of the greatest silent comedies; City Lights, 1931, a poignant love story with a blind flower girl; Modern Times, 1936, a satire on industrialization and modern society; The Great Dictator, 1940, a bold political satire attacking fascism and Adolf Hitler. Personal life and exile. Chaplin's personal life was controversial. He had multiple marriages, several with much younger women, and was the subject of political scrutiny in the U.S. for his alleged communist sympathies. In 1952, while traveling abroad, the U.S. government revoked his re-entry permit. He settled in Switzerland, where he lived for the rest of his life. Later recognition. Despite political troubles, Chaplin's contributions to cinema were eventually recognized. He received an honorary Academy Award in 1972 for his incalculable effect in making motion pictures the art form of this century, returning to the U.S. to a standing ovation. Death and legacy. Charlie Chaplin died on December 25, 1977, at the age of 88. His legacy endures in the lasting power of his films, which blend humor, humanity, and social critique. He remains a towering figure in the history of entertainment, an artist whose work helped shape the language of cinema. Clapperboard. Artistic genius and style. Charlie Chaplin was more than a comic actor. He was a visionary filmmaker, writer, director, producer, editor, and composer. In the silent film era, he achieved what few others could: universal emotional storytelling without dialogue. Key elements of Chaplin's artistry: physical comedy, influenced by vaudeville and pantomime. Chaplin's performances were graceful, acrobatic, and often balletic. His timing was impeccable, whether slipping on a banana peel or executing an elaborate stunt. Pathos and humor. Chaplin was a master of combining laughter with tears. Films like The Kid and City Lights reflect his belief that comedy should reveal deeper truths about poverty, inequality, and human resilience. Social commentary. His films often criticized modern society. Modern Times, 1936, mocked dehumanizing factory work and mechanization. The Great Dictator, 1940, was one of the earliest Hollywood films to directly denounce Adolf Hitler and anti-Semitism, ending with a powerful humanist speech. Music. Chaplin composed the musical scores for many of his films. His theme for Smile, from Modern Times, later became a popular standard, famously covered by Nat King Cole and others. Man-detective controversies and politics. Charlie Chaplin's career was not without conflict, especially in mid-20th century America. Political views. Chaplin's advocacy for peace and criticism of capitalism led to accusations of communism during the Red Scare. Though he denied being a communist, his progressive views and refusal to become a U.S. citizen drew the attention of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. Legal and personal troubles. Chaplin's personal life was turbulent. He was married 4 times and faced paternity suits and scandals. His relationship with Una O'Neill, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill, whom he married when she was 18 and he was 54, was controversial but lasted until his death. Exile. In 1952, after traveling to Europe for the premiere of Limelight, the U.S. government barred his re-entry. Rather than fight, Chaplin chose to settle in Coursières-sur-Vevey, Switzerland, where he spent his final years in peace. Trophy awards and honors. Although he was largely overlooked during the peak of his career due to his political stance and the stigma of silent films, later generations honored his genius. Honorary Academy Award, 1972. Chaplin received a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in Oscar history. Knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 1975. Becoming Sir Charles Chaplin. Numerous retrospectives, statues, and museums around the world, including Chaplin's World in Switzerland, celebrate his life and legacy. Film projector enduring influence. Chaplin's influence on cinema is immeasurable. Modern filmmakers such as Woody Allen, Roberto Benigni, Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, and even directors like Stanley Kubrick and Martin Scorsese have cited him as a major inspiration. His films continue to be studied for their technical brilliance, emotional range, and timeless human themes. The Tramp, poor, wandering, and eternally hopeful, remains one of the most recognizable characters in world cinema. Life in exile. Switzerland years, 1952 to 1977. After being effectively exiled from the U.S. in 1952, Charlie Chaplin and his family settled at Manoir de Ban, a large estate in Coursières-sur-Vevey, Switzerland, overlooking Lake Geneva. Though he never returned to live in the U.S., Chaplin remained creatively active. Limelight, 1952, his farewell to the silent era. This semi-autobiographical film was shot in England but banned in many American theaters at the time. It was only decades later that it received wide recognition. Chaplin cast fellow silent star Buster Keaton in a poignant scene together. A King in New York, 1957, a satirical film criticizing McCarthyism and American consumer culture. It was never released in the U.S. during his lifetime. A Countess from Hong Kong, 1967, starring Sophia Loren and Marlon Brando. This was Chaplin's only film in color in his final directorial work. It received mixed reviews, but Loren remained proud of the collaboration. During this period, Chaplin focused more on writing, composing music, and enjoying a quiet family life with Una and their 8 children. Family man, woman, girl, boy, family and children. Charlie and Una Chaplin had a long and stable marriage. They had 8 children, including Geraldine Chaplin, an accomplished actress, known for her roles in Dr. Zhivago, 1965, and Chaplin, 1992, where she played her grandmother, Hannah. Several of his children went into acting, writing, or the arts. The Chaplin household in Switzerland was both culturally vibrant and deeply private. Despite his fame, Chaplin was known to enjoy simple pleasures, reading, walks by the lake, and composing music. Face mask. Cultural and historical significance. Chaplin's artistry was not just entertaining, it was revolutionary. His work helped shape film as an expressive, emotional, and political medium. Themes in Chaplin's work: poverty and class struggle, the kid, modern times, technology versus humanity, modern times, the rise of authoritarianism, the great dictator, childhood and innocence, the kid, romantic idealism, city lights. His Tramp character became a universal symbol of the everyman, a wandering soul with dignity, resilience, and humor in the face of adversity. TV rediscovery and revival. By the 1960s and 1970s, interest in Chaplin was surging again. Film retrospectives played in theaters and on television. Young audiences discovered his silent masterpieces in film schools and art houses. He was no longer seen as a political outcast but as an elder statesman of cinema. In 1972, after 20 years of absence, Chaplin returned to the U.S. to receive an honorary Academy Award. He was visibly moved by the long ovation. It was a powerful moment of reconciliation. Coffin death and strange aftermath. Chaplin died peacefully in his sleep on December 25, 1977, at age 88. In a bizarre episode months later, his body was stolen from its grave by two men demanding ransom. The perpetrators were caught, and Chaplin's body was recovered. His remains were reburied in a concrete vault to prevent future theft. Classical building legacy. Chaplin's World, a museum in Switzerland, celebrates his life and work. He is widely considered one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. His films are regularly ranked among the greatest ever made. In 1999, the American Film Institute ranked the Tramp as the 10th greatest screen hero in movie history. Time magazine named him one of the * 100 most important people of the 20th century. Scroll famous quotes: "A day without laughter is a day wasted. We think too much and feel too little." From the great dictator speech: "Life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot." The Tramp, an icon of world cinema, perhaps the most universally recognized figure in film history. The Tramp, or Charlotte in France, was Chaplin's signature character. First appearing in kid auto races at Venice, 1914, the Tramp evolved into a deeply expressive symbol of human resilience. Key features of the Tramp: outfit, a tight coat, oversized trousers and shoes, a bowler hat, a bamboo cane, and a toothbrush mustache. Manner: awkward yet graceful, poor yet dignified, comic yet poetic. Philosophy: always optimistic despite hardship. He represented the forgotten man, the underdog, with warmth and wit. Emotional range: though comical, the Tramp often faced poverty, loneliness, and heartbreak. Chaplin said, "I wanted everything to be a contradiction. The pants baggy, the coat tight, the hat small and the shoes large. A tramp, a gentleman, a poet, a dreamer. A lonely fellow always hopeful of romance and adventure." Film frames. Chaplin's influence on film language. Chaplin was a pioneer of narrative cinema. At a time when many films were just moving pictures with gags, Chaplin introduced plot, pathos, and character arcs, particularly in silent comedy. Major contributions: mime and visual expression. His ability to tell complex emotional stories with no dialogue set a benchmark for visual storytelling. Editing techniques: he personally oversaw every frame, inventing techniques still used today. Independent filmmaking: co-founding United Artists allowed him creative control unheard of at the time. He was essentially his own studio. Chaplin's influence can be seen in Jacques Tati, France; Federico Fellini, Italy; Woody Allen; Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean owes much to the Tramp; Pixar, whose early films echo Chaplin's silent storytelling structure. Music score. Chaplin as a composer. One of the lesser-known aspects of Chaplin's artistry is that he composed the musical scores for many of his films, even though he couldn't read sheet music. He would hum or play melodies on the piano and work with arrangers. Famous musical works. Smile, from Modern Times, later had lyrics added and became a standard recorded by Nat King Cole, Michael Jackson, and others. Scores for City Lights, Limelight, The Gold Rush, and The Kid, all deeply moving and essential to the film's emotional power. Chaplin's global popularity. Even before sound films, Chaplin was one of the first truly global celebrities. His appeal transcended language and culture. In many parts of the world, especially in Latin America, Asia, and Europe, he was adored long after American public opinion turned against him in the 1940s and 50s. In India, Mahatma Gandhi expressed admiration for Chaplin's art and ideals. In Russia and China, he was respected as a working-class hero. In France, critics like André Bazin praised his philosophical depth. Classical building institutions honoring Chaplin's World, Corsair sur Vevey, Switzerland, a museum and interactive experience built in his former home. BFI, MoMA, and Criterion Collection regularly showcase and restore his work. UNESCO listed The Great Dictator's final speech among the most important cultural recordings. Books in literature and pop culture. Numerous biographies have been written, including Chaplin's own My Autobiography, 1964, a lyrical and revealing memoir. Robert Downey Jr. portrayed him in the Oscar-nominated film Chaplin, 1992, directed by Richard Attenborough. Chaplin's image appears in posters, art, cartoons, and literature, from Pablo Picasso paintings to graphic novels. Candle. Final years and reflections. In his last years, Chaplin looked back on his life with a mix of sorrow and pride. His final screen appearance came in a silent cameo in A Countess from Hong Kong. He was knighted in 1975, an honor he deeply cherished. When he passed away in 1977, global tributes poured in. François Truffaut called him the only filmmaker to have gained worldwide recognition and universal affection. Detailed filmography highlights. Though Chaplin made over 80 films, here are some of his most iconic and meaningful works. 1. The Kid, 1921, Chaplin's first feature film and a turning point in cinema history. Stars Jackie Coogan as the abandoned child adopted by the Tramp. Noted for its emotional depth and blending of comedy with real human struggle, poverty, single motherhood, and bureaucracy. A Picture with a Smile, and perhaps a tear. 2. The Gold Rush, 1925, set during the Klondike Gold Rush, it features some of Chaplin's most iconic sequences, eating his boot. The Roll Dance with Dinner Rolls. Chaplin once said this was the film for which he wanted to be remembered. 3. City Lights, 1931, considered by many critics as Chaplin's masterpiece. A silent film released during the sound era, a bold move that paid off. Follows the Tramp's love for a blind flower girl in his attempts to help her regain her sight. Final scene, when the girl realizes the Tramp was her benefactor, is one of the most emotional in all cinema. 4. Modern Times, 1936, Chaplin's last silent film, though it includes sound effects and gibberish vocals. Critiques industrialization, automation, and the alienation of labor. Introduced the song Smile as an instrumental theme. Memorable scene, the Tramp caught in giant machine gears. 5. The Great Dictator, 1940, Chaplin's first true sound film and one of the boldest political satires ever made. He played both a Jewish barber and a parody of Hitler. Adenoid Heinkel. The film mocked fascism during a time when the U.S. was still neutral in World War II. Sparkle's famous speech from the great dictator in the final moments. The Jewish barber, mistaken for the dictator, delivers a heartfelt, improvised speech. "I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery." It remains one of the most powerful anti-fascist speeches in film history, frequently quoted in modern media and viral clips. 6. Limelight, 1952, semi-autobiographical. Chaplin plays a fading music hall comedian who saves a suicidal ballerina, played by Claire Bloom. Touching exploration of aging, artistic failure, and love. Features Buster Keaton, Chaplin's one-time rival, in their only on-screen collaboration. Globe Chaplin in the digital age despite being a figure of the early 20th century. Charlie Chaplin continues to influence culture today. His films are remastered and streaming on platforms like Criterion Channel, YouTube, and Max. Chaplin's persona is meme-worthy, often re-edited, remixed, or referenced in TikToks, Instagram Reels, and modern political commentary. His final speech from the great dictator is regularly used in activist videos, symbolizing peace, unity, and freedom. Writing hand Chaplin, the writer and thinker, in his autobiography, My Autobiography, 1964, Chaplin reflects with melancholy and insight on fame, exile, and creativity. He was not just a performer but a philosopher in disguise. From the book, I remain just one thing, and one thing only, and that is a clown. It places me on a far higher plane than any politician. He also published My Life in Pictures, 1974, Charlie Chaplin's own story, as told to a journalist in 1916. Republished later, personal letters and writings compiled in various biographies face mask honors and cultural references. Charlie Chaplin statue in London's Leicester Square. Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, belatedly awarded due to his political exile. Portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. in Chaplin, 1992, earning Downey an Oscar nomination. Referenced in countless works of art, from Salvador Dali paintings to Michael Jackson tributes. Brain Why Chaplin Still Matters. Chaplin's work endures because he told universal stories about love, struggle, and hope. He did so without language, through pure visual poetry. He stood up to tyranny, even at great personal cost. He proved that comedy can be both entertaining and revolutionary. Personal life, love, scandal, and devotion. Charlie Chaplin's personal life was often as dramatic as his films. He had 4 marriages, several with much younger women, and a string of public controversies. Marriages: Mildred Harris, 1918 to 1920, married when she was just 16 and Chaplin was 29. They had a child who tragically died in infancy. Lita Gray, 1924 to 1927, also a teenager when they married. The scandal surrounding their divorce was front-page news. Paulette Goddard, 1936, -1942, a talented actress who starred in Modern Times and The Great Dictator. Their marriage was somewhat ambiguous and short-lived. Una O'Neill, 1943 to 1977, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill. Una was 18 when she married Chaplin, then 54. Despite the age gap and public criticism, their marriage lasted 34 years and produced 8 children. Of their 8 children, several became artists and actors, most notably Geraldine Chaplin. Chaplin was a warm father and reportedly adored domestic life in his later years in Switzerland. Handshake relationship with Buster Keaton, rivals and friends though often compared. Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton were quite different in style and temperament. Aspect: Chaplin-Keaton persona: sentimental, romantic, often emotional, stoic, deadpan. Emotionally restrained comedy style, graceful, choreographed, poetic, mechanical, daring, filled with elaborate stunts, control, obsessed with creative control, more collaborative. Especially later in life their paths crossed in one memorable moment. Right Finger in Limelight, 1952. Chaplin invited Keaton to appear in a comedy act. Despite Keaton's brief screen time, their duet is iconic, a touching moment of silent-era legends together at the twilight of their careers. Chaplin admired Keaton's genius and made sure he had ample screen time. Even when producers wanted to cut it, Keaton reportedly said, "Chaplin was a ballet dancer. I was more of an acrobat." Film frames lesser-known and abandoned projects. Chaplin, a perfectionist, left behind a few incomplete or little-known efforts. Napoleon, 1930s. Chaplin dreamed of playing Napoleon Bonaparte in a grand biopic but never completed the project. The idea deeply fascinated him. The Freak, late 1960s, early 1970s. A planned final film starring his daughter Victoria Chaplin as a winged woman found in the jungle. Chaplin wrote the script and some music, but illness prevented production. How to Make Movies, 1918. A short meta-comedy about filmmaking, rarely seen until much later. The Professor, 1919, an unreleased silent short where Chaplin plays a bizarre flea circus owner. Trophy, artistic control and innovation. Chaplin was perhaps the first true auteur in cinema. He controlled every element of production. Writing, he scripted nearly all his films. Directing, he directed every feature from The Kid onward. Acting, always the star, usually as the Tramp or a variation. Editing, he personally oversaw editing and re-editing. Scoring, composed the music for most of his later films. He could take years to finish a movie. City Lights, for example, took over 2 years to film because of retakes and perfectionism. Receipt, political targeting in America. The 1940s were particularly turbulent for Chaplin. Accused of being a communist sympathizer, largely due to his outspoken support for labor rights and Soviet-American cooperation during World War II. Targeted by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, who opened an extensive file on him. In 1952, while traveling to London for the premiere of Limelight, Chaplin was denied re-entry into the U.S. unless he agreed to an interrogation about his politics. He refused. Settled in Switzerland, heartbroken but defiant. Chaplin later remarked, "The people are wonderful. It's the system that's rotten." Violin, his final years, reflection and peace. Though he never forgave the U.S. government, Chaplin's later years were peaceful. He worked on memoirs, musical scores, and oversaw restorations of his early work. In 1972, the U.S. offered a long-overdue apology by honoring him with an Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement. His return was emotional and triumphant. In 1975, Queen Elizabeth II knighted him as Sir Charles Chaplin. He died peacefully on Christmas Day, 1977, surrounded by family. Film projector. Closing thought. Charlie Chaplin wasn't just a film legend, he was a symbol of cinema's soul, its ability to reflect hardship, stir laughter, and speak to the dignity of every human being. Through a simple character, a tramp, he told the world what mattered most: compassion, hope, and humanity. Global legacy. The most recognized face in the world by the 1920s, Charlie Chaplin was arguably the most famous person on Earth. His Tramp character transcended language, culture, and class. Why he was so universally loved. Silent films required no translation, making him equally accessible in Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Cairo, and Berlin. The Tramp's struggles, hunger, poverty, injustice, were familiar to people everywhere, especially in post-World War I and Depression-era societies. Chaplin's persona was more than a screen character. He became a mythical figure in global consciousness. In many parts of the world, he was not merely a movie star but a folk hero, especially in colonized and working-class societies, where he was seen as the voice of the oppressed. Admired by great thinkers, Chaplin wasn't just popular with audiences. Writers, intellectuals, and leaders admired him deeply. Mahatma Gandhi met Chaplin in 1931 in London. Though Gandhi was wary of Hollywood culture, he respected Chaplin's views on industrialization and poverty. George Bernard Shaw called Chaplin the only genius to come out of the movie industry. Albert Einstein, a personal friend of Chaplin's. The two often attended events together. Einstein reportedly said, "What I most admire about your art is your universality. You don't say a word, yet the world understands you." To which Chaplin replied, "True. But your glory is even greater. The world admires you even though no one understands a word you say." Pablo Picasso, John Steinbeck, and H.G. Wells all praised Chaplin's work for its humanity, social justice themes, and moral courage. Face mask legacy in comedy and storytelling. Chaplin shaped the DNA of modern comedy, from classic slapstick to emotional storytelling in today's cinema. His influence is seen in Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean, direct visual descendant of the Tramp, silent, expressive, and universally understandable. Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful, a tragicomic tone that echoes The Kid and the Great Dictator. Pixar films like WALL-E and Up use pure visual storytelling and emotional minimalism, a direct nod to Chaplin. Wes Anderson and Taika Waititi, quirky, bittersweet characters with stylized visuals that often recall Chaplin's poetic tone. Even YouTube and TikTok comedians, using body language and short-form visual humor, are unknowingly following a tradition Chaplin helped invent. Brain philosophy of Charlie Chaplin beneath the slapstick. Chaplin's work reflects a deep moral worldview on machines and modern life. In modern times, Chaplin warns how industrialization can dehumanize us, reducing people to cogs in a machine. On authoritarianism, The Great Dictator remains a timeless critique of fascism and blind nationalism. On human dignity, every Tramp film affirms that kindness, resilience, and humor are more important than wealth or power. Chaplin was a humanist. His films uplift the ordinary, reveal the sacred in the humble, and remind us that love and laughter are revolutionary. TV Chaplin in the 21st century. More than 100 years after his rise to fame, Chaplin's relevance hasn't faded, it has grown. Film schools teach his work as foundational. Restored 4K versions of his films stream on Criterion and Max. His Great Dictator speech is used in protest videos, political montages, motivational speeches, social media tributes to peace and justice. His face, wide-eyed, mustachioed, slightly sad but full of wonder, remains a symbol of creative rebellion. Checkered flag. Final thoughts. The eternal tramp. Charlie Chaplin's life spanned Victorian poverty, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the Cold War, and the birth of television. He began as a street urchin in London and ended as a knight of the British Empire. He showed the world that comedy is a serious art, that laughter could be a tool for survival, a weapon against tyranny, and a bridge between strangers. To truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it. Charlie Chaplin, he did exactly that, and gave the world joy, beauty, and conscience along the way.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.